Tara from Tara Lee Quiltery. I wanted to share with you guys today a tutorial on how to make your own templates to sew quarter circles, half circles, and yes, even full circles. Quilting rulers can be expensive, and especially if you're getting curved ones, you're not going to be using them every day. And so I've created a way to make your own templates, any size you want, for any project, and it's fairly simple. And yes, you can even sew an entire full circle without any seams in the middle. I'm excited to show you. All right, now that you've got all your supplies, what you're going to want to do is figure out how big you want your finished product to be. So two terms you need to know: diameter and radius. The diameter is the length of the circle, oh hello kitten, all the way across through the middle. The radius is half of that, so it starts at the center and it goes out to one edge. So this had a diameter of 8 finished and a radius of 4. So I'm going to make some templates today that have a diameter of 6 inches finished, so a radius of 3. So I'm going to make a quarter circle template for you, a half circle, and a full circle template. Feel free to make whatever you want. So I decided that I needed 2 pieces of cardboard. One I'm going to use to make the full circle, and the other one I'll be able to fit the half circle template and the quarter circle template on it. You will also need a small strip of cardboard that's about 1 inch wide, and then however long, at least however long your radius is. So my radius is going to be 3 inches, so this is plenty of length. Next, take your small strip of cardboard and your ruler and your pencil. You're going to start at 0 and you're going to go all the way the length of your radius, minus 3 inches. I'm also going to go a 1/4 inch past that. I'm going to put a tick mark at the 1/4 inch past, right at 3 inches, and also a tick mark at a 1/4 inch before. Alright, and I'll make sure to put a tick mark right at my starting point, and you'll have something that looks like this. Next, you're going to need your seam ripper. Using the sharp point of your seam ripper, you're going to carefully poke a hole right in those points. All 4 of them. So this is what you're going to use to draw your curves. You're going to want to make sure that the tip of your pencil can fit through these holes and be able to poke out the other end just ever so slightly, so it'll be able to draw on the surface below it. So you might want to take your sharp pencil and just carefully wiggle those holes a little bigger. Alright, I'm going to start with my quarter circle template. I'm going to put my ruler down, I'm going to make sure I give myself enough room. I'm going to draw a line well past my radius, so well past 3 inches. And again on the other side, well past 3 inches. Okay, so I've made sure that this is a nice right angle there. I'm also going to, using my quilting ruler, draw another line on each side that's a 1/4 inch past it, if that makes sense. And this is super important, and I'll tell you why in just a second. Because if you don't include this 1/4 inch in your template, when you sew your piece, you will actually be short a 1/4 inch here. So you'll be cutting into your shape by a 1/4 inch here, which doesn't seem like a big deal because that would still look like a quarter circle, right? But if you're joining it with other quarter circles or other half circles or whatever, it's eventually going to look wonky because it will not be a complete shape. You will be off by a little bit and it won't look like a full circle. Alright, now I'm going to draw my half circle here. So my diameter is 6 inches, so I'm going to make sure I draw a line that's nice and longer than that. So maybe I'll do about 7 here. And again, I'm going to measure a 1/4 inch down and draw another line. Very important. Now for your full circle, you're going to want to make sure to choose kind of your center point so that your circle isn't going to be cut off anywhere. So just to make sure, measure that all out. I am totally okay here. My cardboard is nice and big, but I'm going to draw a nice big line here that's well bigger than what I need it to be, and I'm going to mark a center point. You're also going to draw a line 1/4 inch on either side of that line. This isn't necessarily integral to the piecing, but it's useful in that it makes this center bar in the middle of your template. That makes it, when you're using your template and laying it on your fabric, it gives you an anchor point to hold on to so that your template isn't sliding around, and also it makes it more stable so it'll last a little longer, and it gives you that center point. So if you're trying to center something on fabric, you'll be able to use this to be able to know where you want your circle to go. All right, here's the fun part. So you're gonna take your seam ripper and you're gonna put that little point in your point right there. Then you're going to make sure to, this is probably the trickiest part, make sure to put that point right on the corner point right there. Then take your pencil and stick it in that first hole. Oh my goodness, I forgot! Yeah, did you see my cardboard start to slide around? No bueno. So that's what your tape's for. You're going to tape down your cardboard so it's nice and still. So again, I'm putting my point here right on that corner point. There we go. Then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to stick it in the first hole here. And I'm going to draw. Now this is very awkward. I'm trying to take a video. But there you see. There's my first curve. Okay, I'm going to do the other 2 holes. So some of you are probably wondering why 3 lines. Because this middle line here is what your curve will look like and measure when it's done being sewn, when it's finished. The inside line is the line that you will use when cutting your background, and the outside line is the line that you will use when cutting the actual fabric that'll make the quarter circle. All right, I'm going to fast forward and draw the rest of my lines for this and for my full circle. All right, cat refuses to move. Okay, I drew all my lines, but before you start cutting, you're going to make what are called registration marks. Registration marks. These are actually really useful because you'll be marking your fabric, and you'll use the registration marks to mark up or match up both pieces of fabric when you're trying to allocate the curve evenly across the curve, if that makes sense. So you'll be matching up the registration marks so that your fabric is very evenly spaced around the curve. So you're going to use the 45-degree line on your quilting ruler, and let's see if I can do this. So you're going to remember your center point. You're going to use that 45-degree line, and you're going to draw a registration mark like so, like that. And again, you'll do one that's perpendicular to your line, like so, and then another one there. You'll do them all on here, and you'll do one on here as well. So all my registration marks are made, and my last thing I'm going to do before I cut these pretty templates out is I'm going to label them. So I like to put an arrow pointing up to the curve. So this is going to remind me that this top curve here, I'm going to write use for circle, and then I'm going to put a bottom arrow pointing to the bottom line here, and I'm going to label this use for background. Okay, I also am going to write the size of this just for future use if I store them away. So I'm going to write 6-inch finished. Then I know that my finished half circle here will measure 6 inches. So go ahead and do that for all your pieces here and cut them out. You're going to cut along this line, and you're going to cut the inners out so it looks like, let's see where I put it. So for instance, this is an 8-inch one here. So I cut the inners out I left this 1/4 inch line and then I cut the outside out. So go ahead and do that for all your pieces. That's what that one's gonna look like. And that's what that one's gonna look like. Guys, I got a little bit excited, and as I was cutting this one out, I just went straight through there, but no worries, I was able to fix it up. Anyway, I've got 2 templates ready for you. I'm gonna do a half circle and a full circle today to show you. And I've got my fabrics out. So, one thing I will say is when you're choosing your fabrics, this ice dye fabric, this is my own stuff. I actually sell quite a bit in my shop. So if you love ice dye fabric, you should definitely visit my shop. But when choosing your background fabrics, make sure that the size of piece of fabric that you're choosing is larger than what you want your finished product to be. So for instance, this is like a 10-inch circle finished. But when I was choosing my background fabric, I kind of went like by like a 11 and 11 at least, maybe even a 12 by 12, because after you sew it, then you're going to press it all nice and straight, and then you're going to trim it up nice and square so it'll be perfectly square. You won't get any waviness to the edges at all. That can happen when sewing curves. So always choose your background piece is larger than what you want it finished to be. So next is just to set your piece on there and trace. Make sure you're using the right line. So for instance, my background, I'm using this inside line here. Kitty is being so helpful today. Doesn't help that the sun is shining right here, and she's like, ooh, a nice warm spot. Okay, I traced all the way around here. Before removing this, I'm going to mark my registration marks. So all the way around, all those registration marks, I'm going to mark. Cat! Okay, hopefully you can see that. It's not too washed out there, but these registration marks, I'm going to extend them just slightly into the line there, just ever so slightly, not too long, because you don't want, these will actually be inside the seam allowance, so they will not be seen. Okay, and I need to finish my circle here and draw a registration mark in the middle of those little sections that couldn't be finished, like so. So this is my background piece, so I'm going to carefully cut this circle out and remove it. Kitty! Kitty! Okay, so I cut that out, and now you can see that those little registration marks are still there, so this is good. Okay, now I'm going to cut my circle out as well. I will also cut the half circle, and I'll show you after that. Alright, my pieces are all cut and they all have their tiny little registration marks on them. So I'm going to show you how to pin the full circle first, and then I'll show you the half circle. So I'm laying my background down right side up. I'm putting my circle down right side up. And do you see that tiny registration mark? I'm going to match it up with that one. So I'm going to carefully flip this over like so. Match up those registration marks right on the edge and pin. I like to pin in, out, in, like that. That way this has nice space that it can billow, but it does make a flat area here, which is what you will sew. Then you're going to keep going. You're going to find the next registration mark, which is hard to see on this fabric, and that registration mark, and you're going to match them up the same. And you're going to keep pinning all the way around, matching up those registration marks. Okay, I'm all pinned up here. Some people like to add quite a more pins, and if that's you, that's totally okay. You would just make sure the ends are meeting like so. This is really hard to video. and pin there. So you can do another pin in between all of those if you want, but otherwise that is ready. When you're doing your quarter or your half one, it's very similar. So this is face up, you can see those little registration marks. This is face up. So I'm going to flip this over and my ends are going to be flush with each other. Does that make sense? Oh, cat just fell down. So I'll pin there, and then again, just like the full circle, I'll find my registration marks, match those up, and pin all the way around. But again, just make sure your ends, your flat ends, are flush with each other, and pin that. Okay, so we're about ready to sew. I actually have a really good tip for you. Let's talk about foot and needle position. So if you look at your curve, there's going to be this margin of area where the fabric is going to lay flat. Anything on this side of that is slightly stretched. Hello, kitty. And anything on this side of that is obviously billowy and bunchy. And the nemesis of curves is puckers, right? So you want to avoid sewing over the fabric folds. Oh my goodness, cat! Okay, I gave her some treats. We'll see how long she holds out. So what I'm trying to say is that if your foot is pressing too much onto this side of your curve, it's going to make pleats. Does that make sense? So you want to make it so that your foot is laying as much as, or as least as possible on this side of your fabric. So I've found that if I use this foot, and maybe even I've used a zipper foot before, but essentially I want to make it so, oh, the cat is back. I want to make it so that my needle is, I found that 0.5 is perfect for me. Oh my goodness! Okay, I put her in my daughter's room. I feel bad for the cat, but anyway, so I've moved my needle over to the left and I've played around with it quite a bit, but this is the perfect setting for me. So if my needle is here, then that means that only this much of the foot is actually going into my curve. Does that make sense? And then I found that if I line up the edge of my fabric right here with this little opening or crease in my foot, then that makes a perfect 1/4 inch. So just experiment with your feet or maybe with your zipper foot to find the perfect amount for you. So for instance, you can see that not very much of this foot is in my curve. So that'll help me make sure that I'm not getting pleats. Okay, so nice and slow. I do not sew over my pins, and when I get close, I remove it, and then I just kind of hold it gently with my finger. Yeah, let's do this. And finally, the most satisfying part, opening up your curves. So here we go. I usually turn it to the back, and whether you press your seams out or press them in is totally up to you. Sometimes I change it up depending on just how the curve feels or how the fabric naturally wants to lay. So I will take my iron and I will press this down. It's important not to push with your iron because that will warp your curve. So you want to just set it down nice and firm and iron that, and it will be totally pretty. This one, let's open this one. Can you believe it? A full circle. Oh, let me show you what they look like after they're pressed. There you have it. Nice and pretty. So now that these are nice and sewn and pressed, I mean, look at how gorgeous that is. Now I would trim them up square to whatever size I needed them to be. Thanks for watching, guys. If you love this fabric, this is called Unicorn on Pink, and it's in my shop, along with a bunch of other awesome ice dye colors and bleach dye colors. I also do patterns, like this one back here, so visit my shop. Thanks for watching, guys.